What is a fact from history that seems too dark to be true? How about the fact that one night in the 1940s, every baby born inside of one Memphis hospital was stolen? This is coming from a Heart Starts Pounding episode, but one night, a 21-year-old named Josie Henderson gave birth to a child in John Gaston Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee. And afterwards, a nurse comes in and says, "I'm so sorry, but your baby has passed away." The nurse doesn't tell Josie how the baby died, but she says, "You need to go to reception and they'll get everything sorted for you." So Josie's walking down the hallway, and as she is, she sees another woman out there crying who was also told that her baby just died. And then she sees another woman who's crying and was also told that the baby she just gave birth to had died. All in all, there were about 7 women in the hallway that had all been told that their babies had died, and Josie starts thinking that this is kind of weird. And Josie didn't know it yet, but every baby born in the hospital that night was stolen by this woman, Georgia Tan. Georgia was a social worker and she was friends with everybody at the hospital, and her dad was a judge, and she basically came up with this sort of kickback program. She basically told the nurses that if they took all the newborn babies and gave them to Georgia and told the mothers that they died, she would be able to sell them to adoptive parents and she would give them a little bit of the money that she earned. And I know it sounds absolutely unfathomable, but Georgia did this to 5,000 children, and I basically did a 2-part series on her for the Heart Starts Pounding podcast, and you can start listening to this episode. She says she was a social worker and then children started disappearing.
Did you guys know that Britney Drexler's body has been found after 13 years? On April 25th, 2009, 17-year-old Britney Drexler went missing while visiting Myrtle Beach for spring break with some friends. Britney lived in New York, and her mother didn't give her permission to travel to Myrtle Beach because she feared something would happen to her. But Britney went anyway. Later that day, on the 25th, Britney walked to her friend's hotel that was a few miles away, but as she made her way back, she suddenly disappeared. The last message that she sent to her boyfriend John, who was in New York, was at 8:58 p.m. and when she stopped responding, he contacted Britney's mother. 62-year-old sex offender Raymond Moody became a person of interest, but he was never charged until now. It wasn't until recently that detectives developed information they needed to make an arrest, and that's when he finally confessed and led investigators to the woods where he buried Britney. 13 years later, on May 11th, 2022, Britney's remains were found in a wooded area in Georgetown, South Carolina. Raymond kidnapped, sexually assaulted, and murdered Britney the same day she went missing. He is now eligible for the death sentence, and he was charged with murder, kidnapping, and criminal sexual misconduct.
These are some of the most terrifying illnesses that you could get tomorrow. And I found all these on Reddit.
But a swang has seen who you are. The only way to save yourself is by watching the whole video, clicking the plus, dropping a like, and tagging a friend. Good luck, my friends. Swang is actually an umbrella name for a various shape-shifting monster. It's extremely evil. It's very well known in Filipino folklore. Swang is a shape-shifting monster that devours unborn babies. And there's only one way to spot one during the daytime, and that is to see the reflection in its eyes, and if it's upside down, I'd run. It's said that there's a way to become one if you choose to, and here's how. Take a fertilized chicken egg and tie it to your stomach. Once the chick passes into their flesh, just bury the shell in a bamboo tube. Fill it with coconut oil and chicken dung, or poop. Then it's said that they will possess these same exact powers as that swang. My question to you guys is, would you try that?
Another 40-year-old cold case has been solved thanks to DNA. 15-year-old Karen Stit was last seen alive on September 2nd, 1982, when she parted ways with her boyfriend at a bus stop in Sunnyvale, California. The next morning, Karen's body was found behind a blood-stained cinder block wall. She had been essayed and stabbed over 50 times. But despite the killer leaving both his blood and bodily fluid on Karen's body, the case went cold and remained that way for 35 years. In 2019, Sunnyvale DPS detective Matt Hutchinson followed up on a tip that determined Karen's killer was allegedly one of 4 brothers from Fresno, California. Thanks to a grant awarded to the prosecutor's office by the U.S. Department of Justice, the investigation into this person continued. And in April 2022, 78-year-old Hawaii man Gary Ramirez was identified as the likely source of blood and bodily fluid left at the crime scene. Ramirez, who was formerly a resident of Fresno, California, and had served in the U.S. Air Force, was living in Maui, Hawaii in 2022 when he was arrested. He was officially charged with Karen Stitt's murder and pleaded no contest to the charges. And now he has been sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years, when he will be 103 years old. So he will be spending the rest of his life in prison. It may have taken 4 decades, but Karen has finally gotten justice. According to the DA's office, Karen Stitt's family members attended the sentencing hearing. The DA said, quote, "Over 40 years ago, Karen Stitt lost her life, but she was not forgotten. Today, thanks to a dedicated detective, a persistent prosecutor, and our crime lab, the person responsible is behind bars. Rest in peace, Karen."
What is going on with this apartment? I'm going to show you the stain that's behind me because this is what's raising a lot of eyebrows. This very distinct discoloration on the carpet, accompanied with this horrific smell, so says the original poster. It trailed this all over the building too. I mean, there are scuffs all through the walls, all down the carpeting of the stairs. I kept looking at it and it looks like a cleanup job, and it's really difficult to say like what this could have been. The thing that's just so persistent about it is this person's like, I've never smelled anything like this in my life. So they actually stuck around and they watched to see who left the apartment. Made it all the way outside, following this person. This is who they saw leaving that building. You think this is worth calling the police over? And if you're looking for additional creepy content, make sure to check it out on the show.
This couple drove their whole family off of a cliff. 38-year-old Jennifer and Sarah Hart were originally from South Dakota, but started a relationship while they were studying at the Northern State University. The couple had adopted 6 children from Texas. The first part of the group was from 2006, and the second part of the group was from 2008, and later they got married in Connecticut in 2009. The children had been removed from their biological families due to neglect and abuse, but it seems like that was still going to follow them into their new home. From the outside looking in, it seemed like this family was a very loving family, but behind closed doors, it was completely different. Teachers and social workers noted bruising, food deprivation, and emotional neglect, and as soon as this was noted, Jennifer and Sarah took the kids out of school and they became homeschooled. In 2010, Sarah pled guilty to assault after one of the children's head was pushed under the water as a form of punishment because they believed that she had stole a penny from them. Despite all the evidence there was about how badly these children were being cared for, CPS failed to protect these children. By 2017, neighbors came forward that the children would run over to their home pleading for food and asking for help, and eventually they reported this to CPS. Just days before tragedy, social workers tried to get in contact with Jennifer and Sarah, but they were unable to reach them. On March 26 of 2018, Jennifer drove the family's GMC Yukon off a 100-foot cliff along the California State Route 1 in Mendocino County. 5 of the children's bodies were found in or near the vehicle, while 1 was never recovered. Evidence confirms that the crash was intentional and Jennifer's blood alcohol level was above the legal limit, and there was a cold medicine found in the system of Sarah and 2 children. Tragically, all of those children lost their life that day, as well as
This is the world's most haunted doll, said to be so haunted that if you take a picture or a video of him without his permission, you'll be cursed. Also stated by many people to be 10 times more dangerous than the Annabelle doll. Robert's story is weird, but here it is. Back in the 1970s, a young boy named Eugene Otto was given Robert the doll by his grandfather. Once these two met, they were completely inseparable, doing absolutely everything together, as a child and his toy usually do. Up until one night, where Eugene can remember going to sleep with Robert, but waking up in the middle of the night to some really weird noises coming from across his room. When he finally got up and checked it out, it was Robert. He was standing by himself, just looking at Eugene. After that, Eugene and the family decided that they were going to put Robert up in the attic, and it is said that Robert stayed there for years. But every single night around the same time, they would hear rustling and scraping and almost a running sound on the attic, meaning that Robert must have been running around up there. Which, as we know, is almost impossible for a doll to do, so it has to be possessed. The other damning piece of evidence is that neighbors have said that when they came home, they have seen Robert inside of the attic looking out the attic window, which is just mind-blowing. Robert currently sits at the Martellus Museum in Key West, Florida, and of course the protective spirit box.
This may be one of the scariest urban legends I've ever heard that actually turned out to be true. So during the 1970s, there was a terrifying funhouse in Long Beach, California called the Laugh in the Dark. And this urban legend began circulating that all the mannequins inside were fake except for one. Something about this mannequin just seemed wrong. All the others looked fake, but this one in particular, they say it looked a little too human. A bunch of kids even said the area around the mannequin had a terrible smell. This next part is where I poop my pants. So a few years go by, and then one day a TV crew comes to use Laugh in the Dark as one of their filming locations. The director is trying to line up the perfect shot, but he just doesn't like the way this one mannequin looked on camera. So he asks one of the crew members to move it out of the way. So the crew member goes over, starts moving the mannequin when the arm completely falls off. Inside the mannequin's arm is human bone. The kids were right all along. The mannequin was a mummified corpse.
Urban Legends That Ended Up Being Real, Part 23. Tombstone Thunderbird. It is said to be spotted in Tombstone, Arizona. It's a huge bird with a wingspan that stretches over 20 feet long, and it comes out during storms. The most well-known account comes from 1890 when two ranchers in Tombstone claimed to have encountered and killed a creature matching the Thunderbird's description. The massive bird attacked their livestock, forcing them to shoot it down. They described it as having leathery bat-like wings and looked more like a dinosaur than a bird. The men dragged the bird back to town, where a photograph of them standing with the massive creature was taken. This photo has become one of the greatest mysteries of the legend. And in 1977, a family in Lawndale, Illinois claimed that a Thunderbird attacked their young son while he was out playing in the yard. The bird tried to carry the boy away before being scared off by the family. And the most recent sighting comes from 2020 when a group of campers in the forests of Pennsylvania claimed to see a shadow pass over their campsite, blocking out the moonlight. But when they looked up, they described a bird so large it seemed to glide silently across the sky, and its wings created a whooshing sound as it disappeared.
Let's talk about the black-eyed children. According to legend, black-eyed children usually come to your house at night. They'll come to your vehicle if you're alone in the parking lot or places where there aren't many people.
If you guys see this video, take a look at how nice.
It disappears as soon as she pans the camera back. They usually tell you that they need help with something, or maybe that they're lost, but the main thing is they want to be let in to wherever you are. They'll try and say anything to get inside, and if you tell them no, they'll start to get a little aggressive, being persistent, saying things like, "You must let me in, I need to be let in." They'll become extremely desperate, and if you decide to let them in, wait, before I continue, your third act comes to your door with black eyes. Let me know who it is, and would you let them in? You see, black-eyed children are dark entities, and just like vampires, they're not allowed in without permission. If you let them in, they will do unspeakable things.
Horror movie villains who could be easily avoided if you're not an idiot, part 2. Annabelle. If I were to obtain a doll where all of a sudden I put it in my bedroom, I wake up the next morning and it's in my living room drawing on the walls with crayon, it's gone. I'm not talking to it, I'm not hiring anybody to talk to it, nothing's moving inside of it. The doll is just gone. You then have Chauncey the bear. Now you gotta do a lot of steps in order to see Chauncey in his normal form. This giant, terrifying bear. Because normally he's just a little teddy bear. Therefore, I'm never going to the never ever. It's never ever happening. You then have Ghostface. This one may be a little bit harder. Just don't be mean to people. Most of the time when people in the Scream franchise are getting packed up, they're a part of a friend group. Sometimes they're the outcasts of the friend group. They do weird things. Thankfully, I'm not involved in anything like that. But yes, this might be the hardest one. You then got my boy Chucky. Well, I actually just rewatched the original Chucky, and I'm not gonna lie, the premise is crazy. It's an unaliver who ends up transporting his body into the Chucky doll. Now hear me out though. If I had a kid and they were like, "Dad, I want a doll that talks," then all of a sudden, as soon as it starts talking, you can hear the voices a little bit different than on TV, especially because you got it in an alleyway. You never bought it from the store. The doll is haunted and it's gotta go. I'm immediately throwing it in the fire. Like and follow if I should do a part 3.
DeVar J. DJ Daniel, a 13-year-old battling terminal brain cancer, has been sworn in as an honorary Border Patrol agent and ICE officer. The U.S. Border Patrol welcomed DJ, writing, "DJ is an unstoppable force and a true inspiration. We know he will exemplify our motto of honor first." The U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement shared, "DJ's determination is an inspiration to all of us, and we're honored to welcome him to our team." This follows just months after DJ was made an honorary Secret Service agent during President Trump's congressional address.
To officially make you an agent of the United States Secret Service.
DJ has already been sworn in by over 1,100 law enforcement agencies, surpassing his goal of 1,000.
Have you ever come across one of these while walking on a railroad track? Chances are you have no idea what that is, which makes sense as they've been obsolete for quite some time. That device is a railway torpedo which was invented in 1841. It's a simple small dynamite charge wrapped in red paper and strapped to the rail using lead strips. The weight of the engine would detonate the charge, which signaled to the operator that he needed to start slowing down. An incredibly helpful invention, but as with any explosive, they pose their own risks, especially with curious children. In 1943, 11-year-old J.J. Arms stole a couple of these from a railway company. He mistakenly rubbed two of them together, causing them to explode and mangling both of his hands. Despite both of his hands requiring amputation and fitted with prosthetics, he went on to appear in 39 movies, 28 TV shows, started his own private investigation agency, and had his own line of toys in 1976. That don't mean go out and play with explosives and lose your hands.
Diddy's criminal trial in New York began this week, and there's a lot that has happened here to get to this point, so here is a very brief overview of who Diddy is and how we got here. Sean Combs, known as P. Diddy or Diddy, started out as a producer and record label exec. His label, Bad Boy Records, represented tons of big artists over the years, including Biggie Smalls. When Biggie was murdered in 1997, Diddy himself became one of the record's biggest artists, producing music over the years. In 2022 and 2023, he was given Lifetime Achievement Awards at the BET Awards and the VMAs. He released a new album in September 2023, and then in November, he was nominated for a Grammy for that album. But less than a week later, a first lawsuit was filed against Combs. Cassie Ventura, Combs' ex-girlfriend, accused him of years of physical, sexual, and emotional abuse in a civil suit filed against him. And that was just the beginning of Combs' legal problems. Now he is facing dozens of civil lawsuits, with many accusers saying they were essayed after being drugged at one of Combs' lavish parties. In September 2024, Combs was arrested on federal charges of racketeering, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution. And now he is on trial for those charges. In April 2024, he was indicted for sexually trafficking 3 women, controlling them via physical and emotional abuse, including supplying them with drugs to keep them quiet and paying them to keep quiet, all in a 20-year span between 2004 and 2024. The indictment also describes Combs' alleged freak-offs, which were elaborately planned, staged, and often videotaped parties where sex and drug use was going on. The indictment accuses Combs of having, quote, abused, threatened, and coerced women and others around him to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. At his trial, prosecutors arguing Combs' case alleged that he used his business empire to fuel and conceal his criminal activities, and that he used his money, power, and influence to reach criminal ends. Combs' trial began this week and is expected to last 8 to 10 weeks. And the trial testimony began with Cassie Ventura on the witness stand. Cassie's civil suit from 2023 was settled for $20 million the day after it was filed, but now she is testifying in Combs' criminal trial. And today is her 5th day of testimony and is expected to be the last. So I will do a recap once that's done.
Y'all, after 18 years, the Maline McCain case might finally be solved, y'all. And here's why. They found a bunker full of information, bikes, toys, and GUNS in relation to this case and the man that has something to do with taking her. This is so scary and creepy, and another reason why you gotta keep your kids right up next to you. This is where they found all the information at, and the man that they have found that had all this information is already in prison for unrelated crime, which is related to SA of another person. Y'all, this right here is probably where Madeline was taken to and lured, because he had toys, he had bikes, he had balls, he had everything that a child would probably want, candy, all kinds of stuff that would probably lure this little girl to where he took her, and allegedly has confessed to SAing a blonde 4-year-old little girl for multiple days. There was a hard drive found at the home of Christian Bruckner, and he is now considered to be the prime suspect in the Maline McCain investigation, and there is evidence to say that she is probably unalived. Now, they're saying that the material was never previously made public, and this is all brand new, and he's obsessed with young children. It says right here, the items discovered at his abandoned home, a disused factory he bought for $20,000 in 2008, were children's clothes, toys, masks, chemicals, and pew-pews. I mean, look at him. He even looked like he did something like this. This is him right here, and he is currently in prison for the SA of a woman. This woman had claimed that she was Maline McCain. This is not Maline McCain. So this proves that this woman was lying about the whole situation. She is not Maline McCain. There was also an insurance claim signed by Bruckner revealing that he had been involved in a crash at a festival. And basically all this information came out after that. They said that his involvement in the case, and police believe the material may indicate that Maline is unalive. So unfortunately, she's probably gone and has been gone for a very long time. And then someone else said that they met Maline McCain suspect on a site used by, and that there were images on there that linked him to the investigation and searches of children between the age of 4 and 5. And there were more than 75 children's swimming suits, as well as toys and small bikes. This is extremely creepy.